Hello everyone, I'm TheVespor, here to bring you the first edition of Back in Time, where we take a look at something from the past that we still enjoy to this day. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as there will be many more of these showing up, and you don't want to miss any of them. Today's subject is the 1991 arcade released game, WWF Wrestlefest, made by Technos Japan. Technically, this is the second game from Technos Japan around WWF and its wrestlers. The first one being the 1989 release WWF Superstars. It wasn't until Wrestlefest improved on everything that came prior that fans realized how great this game truly was. Wrestlefest had an expanded roster, improving greatly over the only 6 wrestlers who were usable in the Superstars game that was created prior. Wrestlefest had some of the biggest names in the business: Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Big Boss Man, Jake the Snake Roberts, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, Earthquake, Mr. Perfect, and fan favorite tag team Demolition. Wrestlefest is also notable for having more than one mode of gameplay, one being a Royal Rumble mode and the other being Saturday night's main event Tag Team Challenge mode. For the Royal Rumble, you selected one of the 10 available wrestlers and had to defeat every other wrestler in the game, with a max of 6 wrestlers at a time being in the ring. You had to throw them over the ropes, or for this version, unlike the actual Royal Rumble, pin your opponents as well. Once you defeat a wrestler, or the computer defeated another wrestler, another one would enter the ring, and it went on like this until all wrestlers in the game were defeated, or you were defeated, and the game ends. In Saturday night's main event mode, it was tag team matches where you selected wrestlers you could control and could tag your partner in and out as needed. You would face the other wrestlers in tag team combinations until all were defeated, and then you had to face the boss team of the game, which was the Legion of Doom. To completely beat this mode, you had to go through this pattern twice. The only difference being the second run through, all the wrestlers are significantly harder than the last time around. Unlike its predecessor, Superstars, Wrestlefest would become one of the most popular arcade games in late 1991 in both North America and Japan, and will continue to be the pinnacle for what wrestling games should provide in both fun and gameplay. With Wrestlefest easily becoming one of the best wrestling games on the market, we won't need to talk of the worst one, Superstars, that pales in comparison in every way to what came from its ashes. Why was WWF Wrestlefest the best wrestling game on the market at the time? In my opinion, there were many reasons for this. First and foremost, the controls were easy and simplistic. Previous game had complicated and non-responsive control. This game made up for that with the simple pushes of buttons to get actions and moves to perform. The second reason was that the lineup was plentiful and diverse, no longer limited to just 6 characters. The roster has 10 wrestlers plus the Legion of Doom, all having their iconic looks, personalities, and feel as we either used or fought against them. Finally, we have a game that gives each wrestler signature moves. It was all here. Every wrestler felt very unique and related to their actual counterpart for the most part. Wrestling games on the market were not good up until this game was released in 1991. You had games that we have already looked at here on our channel, like Tag Team Wrestling and WrestleMania on the NES, that had terrible controls and lacking features with very limited rosters for wrestlers. A lot of wrestlers didn't have varying or signature moves, with many of them having a limited roster sharing the same generic moves. Now, this is speaking broadly, as there are games with wrestlers with signature moves, but terrible controls would make it difficult to execute those moves. So now, with a little bit of background out of the way of the game, I want to share some of my feelings here with this game. My first experience with Wrestlefest was in a Walmart. It was a very popular game at the particular one local to me, and there wasn't even a Wrestlefest available to play in the local arcade at the mall. There would always be a line of people waiting to get a chance to play in it. You could always tell where someone was in the game, at least in the Saturday night's main event mode. If you walk in and you don't see the guy in front of the arcade cabinet pumping quarters into the game, you knew he was on the first run through and hadn't yet defeated the Legion of Doom for the first time. After they got through the game once, and they saw those credits congratulating you on becoming tag team champions, you realized your adventure with this game was just getting started. Now, on the second run through, all the wrestlers, including the Legion of Doom, became very difficult. You would see the player who just got through the game easily was now struggling and pumping in quarters again and again to keep from losing that playthrough. As a lot of the games in the 1990s did, it became increasingly difficult and unfair. You were most likely not going to pull off any moves on the computer unless it let you do so. When I finally got to play the game at Walmart for the first time, I went in with $1 worth of quarters from my parents as they were off shopping, and I was left to tackle this game while they did so. I knew nothing about the game except that it had a lot of wrestlers I watched and enjoyed. It's no secret if you have seen some of the videos here on the Vesper game. I loved wrestling as a kid, and I absolutely worshipped Hulk Hogan. Eat your vitamins and say your prayers. And the Ultimate Warrior, Hulk Hogan. And that's who I picked for my first gameplay of WrestleFest ever. There was no way I could lose with those two being up everyone together. I didn't care what the moves or that every wrestler was equal in the game as far as power went. I just wanted to play as my favorite wrestler in one awesome power-packed tag team. So, my turn to play the game finally arrived. I put the quarters in and the game loaded up. I didn't even know what Royal Rumble mode would entail. I wanted to use my two favorite wrestlers, so I easily selected Saturday night's main event mode and selected Hogan and Warrior. Watched them come down the ramp together, and wow, I felt that rush. Playing a fun game with two of my favorite wrestlers ever. When the first round started, I was beyond pumped. I had to quickly get a feel for the game and adapt to what each button did and how moves would go. Running, jumping off ropes, and doing various moves after locking up in battle with the opponent. It was a great experience. In fact, I remember even my first time playing this game. I didn't have much trouble at all getting through the initial rounds until I got to the round right before you go up against the Legion of Doom for the first time. It was around that time I had to finally use one of my 3 quarters left to refresh my health. Not too bad. I got a lot of gameplay out of just 1 quarter after all. I had to put another one in to keep the gameplay and going for as long as it could go. Now, when I fought the boss tag team of the game, the Legion of Doom, for the first time ever, it also wound up costing me another quarter. Now I was down on just 1 quarter to beat the whole game. However, in the end, I was successful and I had managed to beat the Legion of Doom. I quickly realized that the game didn't end. It was one of those games you had to win twice to get the actual ending and be able to put your initials in as champion. And with 1 quarter left, well, let's just say I didn't get much farther past this. My last quarter was put in not too long after defeating the LOD. Ah, what a rush! The first time, and then the match was lost, and the counter asking me to continue appeared on the screen. The game difficulty amped up tremendously. Sadly, I wouldn't really beat WrestleFest until much later. As a kid, I just didn't have the funds to get through Saturday night's main event mode with how difficult the second run through the LOD is. I would come to realize that when you have limited funds and time, the Royal Rumble mode is the way to go in this game. When I eventually got the chance to play WrestleFest, I would choose the Royal Rumble mode and beat it on 75 cents. Royal Rumble mode was just as much fun, so much easier and to the point. I saw many people were able to beat Royal Rumble mode on just 1 quarter, and that became my goal too. And that wasn't an easy task, as not only do you have to defeat 11 other wrestlers with 1 health bar to work with, you also have a time limit that'll run out if you aren't defeating wrestlers fast enough. But if you did beat it on 1 quarter, the other downside was you had to rush through the Royal Rumble mode so quickly you don't really get any true enjoyment out of it, as it's such a quick experience. Overall, I really love this game and would always seek it out with the same pattern of trying to see how far I could go in tag team mode, and other times just quickly getting through it in the Royal Rumble mode when all else failed. This was really my go-to wrestling game, the only one I would speak highly of until the Nintendo 64 came out. The wrestling games made for the system were revolutionary. You could play 4 players on a single console. Games like WCW NWO Revenge and WWF No Mercy were amazing. Revolutionary, in fact. Can't keep emphasizing this point. Finally, we have wrestling games on a console that did what the NES, SNES, and Game Boy couldn't do. Provide a fun and in-depth gameplay experience with rosters, moves, and controls similar to what WrestleFest was able to accomplish. Of course, at this point, WWF Wrestlefest had been out for over 7 years and the rosters had completely changed. Plus, the limited moves and graphics helped to date this game even more. The options and customization from these newer games quickly put WWF Wrestlefest to shame, and surprisingly, WrestleFest was never ported to a computer or other system. It would be through MAME many years later that others would first get to experience this gem of a game for themselves, like I did that first time at Walmart. I can talk about my thoughts on the N64 based wrestling games another time, as I have so many more memories of those that I can get into. But looking back at arcade wrestling games, there is no better than WWF Wrestlefest, at least in my humble opinion. It is one of the best ever made, as it did something no other wrestling game did in the arcade. Sure, we had Saturday Night Slam Masters and WWF WrestleMania that would also have interesting wrestling games found in the arcades after WrestleFest came and went, but to me, it never quite matched the magic and joy that playing WrestleFest for that first time did at Walmart. The idea of getting to select one or two of your favorite wrestlers, go up against others, and have an announcer telling the moves as they are performed and watching them do the iconic moves as you work your way to a title or Royal Rumble win was amazing. It was something that none of the other wrestling games ever really were able to match in epicness again. You have seen us play WrestleFest here a few times, and for good reason. It's just a fun game that everyone must experience or relive again if it has been a while since you last played it. I highly recommend you play through this game again. Get it, play it, experience it once more. It's easy enough to do so. Even better, get your friends, siblings, or whoever just enjoys wrestling in general to come and play this with you again. If you loved old school wrestling, as we do here on TheVespor Gaming, then you will love this game. Tell them TheVespor sent you. Well, that wraps up this first edition of Back in Time, so please, tell us about your experience with the game down below in the comments section. We really want to hear other experiences and memories in relation to this game. If you have a good story about your experiences in the arcade with this game, share it with us. This has been TheVespor, and I thank you for joining me on my trip back in time. We will be heading back in time again soon, so be sure to look for our next edition of the show. Until then, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and especially ring that bell. So, see you all next time on TheVespor Gaming.